Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson. I am your host. And in this episode, we are going to be going over a little draft review of a real-life fantasy football draft that I just finished up. It is currently Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. The NFL season starts tomorrow on Thursday, September 5th. I'm going to post this shortly after recording this. I don't know if it'll come out on the 4th or the 5th, but I do have another draft starting in less than an hour as I'm recording right now, as I'm speaking. So I'm going to try to get through this pretty quickly. If you do want video as we do this draft review, I would recommend going to the YouTube channel. That way you can actually see the draft board as I talk through it versus trying to just listen to it. But I will do my best to make sure that the audio only listeners can also follow along as best as they can without actually seeing the draft board. You can head over to Fantasy Football Prodigy on YouTube, though. And while you're there, or if you're still listening on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you're listening, make sure to follow, subscribe, wherever you're listening. Make sure to drop a like if you're able to. Leave a comment, say what's up. And with that being said, let's get right into the draft review. So, unfortunately, well, I got to get rid of this face cam border. That's for my gaming channel. But unfortunately, to my knowledge, there's not a good draft board on ESPN. So we're just going to kind of have to look at it where you can just pretty much see everything at once. But this is the draft recap. This is a 10-team Superflex, half PPR auction league. Okay, you got two quarterbacks, one quarterback in a Superflex. So you want to be playing two quarterbacks, two running backs. I believe we do three wide receivers. Let me verify. Yep, three wide receivers, one regular flex, and then a tight end as well. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bench spots and 2 IR spots, which will come into play as you'll see later on. So I'm just going to kind of focus on my team to start things off. This year, I went pretty conservative with my spending early on in the draft. I play with pretty knowledgeable players for the most part, but Superflex is still kind of new to a lot of them. We've been doing this league for a few years, but by default, ESPN kind of undervalues the quarterback position when you're in a Superflex league just based on their auction values compared to if you look at other resources. I don't even think it adjusts it, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of the skill position players, those tier 1 and tier 2, running backs and wide receivers, they went for quite a bit early on. Like, as you'll see, Amon-Ra 52, Bijan 46. This team went heavy on that. I think he might have auto-drafted some of these. If you leave the ESPN website for like a second, it'll just bid for you. So that might have been what happened with this guy. But he got Bijan for 46, Saquon for 44, Breece Hall for 55, Puka Nacua for 39. And I should have said this is a $200 budget, by the way, if you couldn't tell by the numbers I'm reading off. Christian McCaffrey went for 53. Jefferson went for 58, which is a lot. He went for more than McCaffrey. We're a lot of Vikings fans here, though, as you can see by my Purple People Eater shirt. So you get the point, right? Garrett Wilson, 52. CeeDee Lamb, 46. CeeDee Lamb went for less than Garrett Wilson. Like, dude, in these auction leagues, there's some crazy stuff that happens. So long story short, I kind of saved up my money. And my first pick was Raheem Mostert, one of my favorite values. I've talked about him a lot in other podcasts, but Raheem Mostert, running back of the Miami Dolphins, I got him for $8, which is 4% of my $200 budget, just divided by 2, obviously. And to me, that was just like a super easy pick. He got nominated 4th overall. That doesn't mean I took him 4th overall. Just, you can nominate any player at any point once it's your turn. Like, you can nominate Brandon Cooks 1st overall. He's going to go for like $1. But, and after that, I didn't pick again until pick 37. I watched a lot of those guys that I mentioned go off the board. I was trying to, make a play on some quarterbacks, but Josh Allen went for 47. Mahomes went for 36. I just felt like there were some more values there. Another guy that I was targeting that I wanted as my QB1 was Kyler Murray, but he ended up going for 35, which was a little more than I was willing to spend based on who was left at the time, who I was comfortable with in a similar tier, like a similar ranking as Kyler Murray. And I do think I made the right decision. So my next pick in this Superflex league was Jordan Love, quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. So I started with Mostert, and then I got my first quarterback. Quarterback is very important in the Superflex. So Mostert to me was a great value. I don't think he's going to be the running back 2 overall like he was last year, but the fact that he was the running back 2 overall, scored 20 touchdowns and a great offense. I know Achane is going to be involved, but I think multiple running backs can succeed in this offense, so he doesn't have to be the running back 2 overall. He can be just a running back 2, like a top 24 overall running back for $8, and I'll be happy with that. Jordan Love for $24, 12% of my budget. That's a guy that in my head I've wanted to target. I haven't gotten him in any drafts yet until tonight. And to me, like, I just love that value because a guy like CJ Stroud, I mean, he went for 28. So to me, Jordan Love, who went for 24, he's a little bit of like a CJ Stroud light, where they're very similar archetypes, have weapons. You need some higher touchdown volume, but usually CJ Stroud is going quite a bit more than Jordan Love. In this case, he only went for $4 more. But as you'll see later on in this draft, every dollar counted. So even just getting that $4 discount, I'm pretty cool with that. And compared to what a lot of these other quarterbacks went for, getting him for 24 was a good price. Although I will say there were some other quarterback values that I liked a lot in this draft. But I was pretty aggressive going after Jordan Love. So I'm a Vikings fan. It pains me to, see Jordan Love be my quarterback, but it is what it is. Another great value I got because I waited for a lot of those upper echelon receivers and running backs to go. People got very conservative with their spending in the middle round. So I made a pick with number 4 overall, and then I didn't make a pick again until 37. And from picks 37 to like 70, in that range, I was getting these like not marquee names, but guys that can put up positional, running back, wide receiver 1 value. So Drake London, I got for $21, 10.5% of my budget. A guy who normally I think he's going a little too early, but because so many people went for so much money, and because ESPN values those positional players too highly in a super flex league, who would you rather have, Amon-Ra St. Brown or Drake London? Well, I'd rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I got him for less than half the price. Amon-Ra went for 52, Drake London went for 21. I got him for 21. Puka Nacua went for 39. Garrett Wilson went for 52. Justin Jefferson went for 58. Marvin Harrison went for 29, unproven rookie. Drake London, he's got the quarterback, he's got the potential. Harrison actually went for a fairly okay price in this draft. Sometimes he goes for way too much in my opinion, but he was kind of a bad example there. But I get my second quarterback next after taking Drake London, Atlanta Falcons wide receiver. Hopefully Kirk Cousins can get him the ball. Jared Goff, quarterback of the Detroit Lions. Great offense, great team. He has a lot of dome games, and he's good at home games. So when he's at home and or in a dome, I'm going to play him most likely over Jordan Love, just depending on matchups. I have a third quarterback who very heavily factors into this, as you'll see. But Jared Goff for $14, 7% of my budget. That a guy that I'm targeting a lot, especially in a super flex league, where he's going to be in my lineup a lot of weeks in those right matchups where it's at home or he's playing in a dome. He's really good in those situations, not as good on the road. So I know when to start him. And when I don't start him, I have another guy who I can put in there as well. Another astounding value, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver of the 49ers for $20. One of my favorite receivers. I once upon a time traded him in Dynasty straight up for Chase Claypool. That was right before his wide receiver 2 overall season, where he finished just behind Cooper Kupp, the only guy who was ahead of him, and he had the Triple Crown. But Deebo Samuel for $20, 10% of my budget. Again, like, he's not in the same tier as a lot of these guys, but to get him for 10% of my budget is, I really, really like that value. Just because he's going to get the volume. He's getting a little bit older. He's missed games, but I have a lot of depth on this team where even if he misses games, I'll be able to plug and play someone else. Alvin Kamara, one of my guys at running back of the New Orleans Saints. I got him for $24. Again, just to keep illustrating this example of the good value I got. Is he Breece Hall? Is he Christian McCaffrey? No, but Breece Hall went for 55. McCaffrey went for 53. I got Kamara for 24, less than half. And I think he might not have those boom games. I think the touchdown opportunities will be limited, but he's going to see a ton of volume in the passing game. When he was healthy last year, when he was on the field, I believe he was like the running back 2 overall for like his healthy stretch. Or it was some figure like that. I talked about it more in another video, but he was one of the arguably the best running back in fantasy. He's so consistent, got the passing game. This is a half PPR league. Every time he gets a catch, that's half a point. So for $24, 12% of my budget, I love that as my running back 1, even though I did take Mostert technically ahead. Kamara slots in as the running back 1. Another just incredible value. James Cook, running back of the Buffalo Bills, for $19. Same thing as Alvin Kamara, pretty similar, where he's going to get a lot of passes and he's not quite in that tier of upper echelon players, but for $19, he's a great value. And I was able to get depth that no other team in this league really has. The Bills offense might not be as good as it was last year. They have a lot of vacated targets, though. They lost Stephon Diggs. They lost Gabe Davis. And when that happens for a team, a lot of those targets do go to the running back position. And James Cook is a great receiving back. So kind of like Kamara, I don't expect him to score a ton. Not just because I think the Bills offense is better than the Saints. It's a different reason. The reason I don't think Cook will score a lot of touchdowns is because when they get to the goal line, last year they went with Latavius Murray. They brought in Ray Davis this year that kind of profiles more as a bruiser running back, goal line running back. Josh Allen runs it in a lot at the goal line. But James Cook was pretty good for fantasy last year, and I believe he had like 2 touchdowns or some really low number. So I think he can beat 2 touchdowns. And if he doesn't, he'll probably just be like an okay pick. But even if he gets like, let's say 5 or 6 touchdowns, or if he really blows the lid off and gets 8, that's a crazy value for $19. I mean, compared to, I don't know, what's another good example here? I mean, like guys like, I'm looking for a running back. Kyron Williams went for 32. I mean, Kyron Williams, I think, has a lot more potential, but ETN went for 33. And those, Jahmyr Gibbs went for 36. So some of those guys I like better, but for $19, that's a crazy value. Another my guy, DK Metcalf, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks. I got him for $20, 10% of my budget. I was pretty aggressive going after him just because I really like him. I think he's undervalued. I think he's being drafted at his floor. I think last year was a little bit rough, but there's reasons to believe that the Seattle passing game might be a little bit better this year. A couple years ago, I think it was a little too good. Like they overachieved last year. I think they underachieved. But if you look at Geno Smith's numbers, it's not like he was a bad player. So a lot of things didn't work out. They did not connect on big plays. And I think Metcalf is being drafted around his floor. But he has that rare thing where he can be a top-end wide receiver. He's been a high-end wide receiver 1 in the past, and he could do it. He's a physical freak. I know last year wasn't great, not very consistent, but I expect a bounce back year for DK Metcalf. And for $20, I like that. To get Metcalf for 20, Jefferson went for 58. Marvin Harrison went for more, $29. Jamar Chase went for 49. Terry McLaurin went for 36 for some reason. I found a good running back example of, Derrick Henry went for 27. And to go back to my James Cook example, Derrick Henry for 27, I don't hate that value, but I'd rather have James Cook for 19. I really try to use that tier-based rankings system where you just wait for the value at, don't get so hyper-focused on a name. Look at people in buckets of similar expected outcomes and just target the value in that tier. Next up, this might be I've got so many good values in this draft. It's one of my best drafts ever, in my opinion. James Conner, running back of the Arizona Cardinals. I got him for $10, $5. He's one of my favorite targets in all of drafts just because the last couple of years he's been a league winner down the stretch. It's been a little rocky and he does always miss games. But when he's on the field, he often is a running back 1. And at the worst, he's a running back 2 most weeks. For $10, I mean, that's just that's value that is just hard to even quantify. I mean, he went for so cheap. It's just unbelievable. And then I took his teammate, Trey McBride, tight end of the Arizona Cardinals. Not a guy that I'm typically targeting in drafts, but Kelsey went off the board first, I believe. Yep. He went for $16. I was in a bidding war for Andrews. He went for 17. And then once Trey McBride was on the board, I'm like, okay, well, he's in a similar tier as those guys, but I'm getting him for less. I got him for $10. How much did Sam Laporta go for? Laporta went for 18. So McBride is in that same tier as those guys, according to a lot of experts, and I got him for the cheapest out of all of them. So for $10 to get a tier 1 tight end, I love that. Especially when the other players in that tier, those top four, the big four, went for more than that. And then just to kind of, I also am a fan of Dalton Kincaid. He went for $8, so that's another really good value. Njoku and Jake Ferguson of the Browns and Cowboys went for $1 each. So that's even better value because at the end of the draft, no one had money. You know, those guys might not be league winners, but for $1, that's insane value. I feel like all my picks are just good values. I'm sorry to just keep saying that, but Tank Dell, $8, 4% of my budget. If you look at some of the guys who were going around him, like if this was a snake draft, right, a traditional snake draft, he would have been taken much, much earlier than the equivalent of an $8 bid in an auction league. Same with Amari Cooper, who I just didn't have enough money to get at the end of the draft. But Amari Cooper, very similar tiered player, very similar expected outcomes. He went for $9. So, you know, I'd prefer Tank Dell for $8. But they're both incredible values. Moving on, Tank Dell, wide receiver of the Houston Texans. It's crowded, but I think he's good enough where he'll make noise. This might be the greatest value in the draft. I know I've said that for every pick, but Dak Prescott for $12. So to me, the quarterbacks that I target in single quarterback leagues are Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott. I think they're similar archetypes where Kyler Murray is more of a scrambler, Dak Prescott is more of a pocket passer, but I think they'll both finish very well. Dak was a league winner last year to end the season. I don't think he'll light the league on fire, like, you know, be the quarterback one all year like he was. I mean, I don't know if he was a quarterback one. He was up there. He might have been the quarterback one for a stretch, but Kyler Murray, who I think is a very similar player, and I love Kyler Murray, I pumped the brakes when I saw his price skyrocketing, and I'm like, I think I can get like another player that I like similarly for less as people just keep spending big. Kyler Murray went for $35. I got Dak Prescott for $12. I got him for a third of the price. I would probably rather have Kyler Murray, don't get me wrong, just a little bit, just a hair, but for a third of the price, for 23, what did he go for? 35? Yeah, he went for 23 plus 12 is 35. I did math. Yep. Yeah. That right there is just, and I mean, dude, Jordan Love went for 24. I'd rather have Dak than Jordan Love. We hope that Jordan Love becomes what Dak Prescott is, but he went so late in the draft, no one nominated him, and I had saved up enough money because I was eyeing him, and I'm like, please, no one nominate him. Keep spending your money. Let me get Dak Prescott, a locked-in quarterback one. He is a guy who I'm probably going to be starting each and every week. If Jordan Love continues his growth, he might be a guy where if Jared Goff is at home against a bad defense and Jordan Love has a better matchup and than Dak Prescott, if he's on the road in a tough matchup, okay, then maybe I start Jordan Love. But Dak is, my 3 quarterback carousel is probably, I don't know if it's the best in the league because I think there was a team that had Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, but I mean, that's insane value. Next up, Calvin Ridley for $6. He's a guy that I like targeting in drafts. I haven't gotten him anywhere, but in an auction league, I love auction drafts because you can actually go after players that you want. You don't have to play the ADP game where, well, I really want Alvin Kamara, but if I take him here, I'm reaching on guys that I technically like more, but he's not going to make it back to me, you know? Whereas Calvin Ridley, I got him for $6. I got him for 3% of my budget. It wasn't great last year for Jacksonville, but he's just so undervalued. He's kind of like DK Metcalf, where he's being drafted at his floor, and even if things don't go well, paying $6 for Calvin Ridley is a steal. I mean, even if he's like a low-end wide receiver 2, you know, that's good value. He's being drafted later than where he finished last year, and I think Will Levis is going to chuck it to him. Like, he's a gunslinger. You know, he was all the hotness last year before the season. Now people have completely done a 180. I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 overall, but hey, man, $6, give me Calvin Ridley. So after that, I became one of the teams that kind of had, you know, not as much money left. So I wasn't able to make too many bids until later in the draft. My max bid was $2 at that point. And I got an incredible value overall, but an even better value for my archetype of team. I got David Montgomery, running back of the Detroit Lions, for $2. 1% of my budget. 1% of my budget. I understand Jahmyr Gibbs is probably going to be the better player for fantasy. He's the better player overall, more explosive. Montgomery is more of a plotter. Bro, Gibbs went for 36, which I like that price too, honestly. 18% for Gibbs, that's a good value. David Montgomery went for $2. I got David Montgomery for 1/18th of the price as Jahmyr Gibbs, which that's just an insane value. Montgomery's going to be involved. He'll get some touchdowns. Won't be as good as Gibbs. But what I like about this Montgomery pick too is if Gibbs goes down, David Montgomery is a guy who will elevate into like a upper echelon running back. You know, a lot of times people draft these handcuff running backs, but they have no standalone value. Like Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Jordan Mason, those types of guys who we expect to be the clear backups and are only valuable if the starter goes down. Montgomery is going to be valuable. He's going to be a flex play, even if Gibbs is on the field, just because their offense is good and there's going to be scoring opportunities. But if Gibbs goes down, Montgomery becomes a league winner, which it's a great pick overall. It's a great pick for my team. I love it. Tajay Spears, kind of a similar thing, just a lighter version. I got him for $1. So like, you know, usually the equivalent of paying $2 for a player is in like a snake draft. You're taking them like super late in the draft, like last rounds of the draft. You can't get a David Montgomery for the equivalent of $2 in a snake draft, if that makes sense. Like, you know, Tajay Spears, you know, is the equivalent of spending $1 in this auction league might be in a snake league. Like, okay, well, I'm going to take Blake Corum, Trey Benson, where I probably need an injury for relevance to occur. Whereas Tajay Spears, I don't super love the fact that it's a committee with Tony Pollard, but he might be a flex play. And if not, he still offers handcuff value where if Pollard goes down, Spears is going to be playable. And I think the Titans offense is underrated, and I think they might have some value. And then finally, I took Nick Chubb, running back of the Cleveland Browns, after Tajay Spears, running back of the Tennessee Titans. I don't typically want to take Nick Chubb just because I don't know if he's going to be able to recover from that devastating knee injury at this age, but he is going to begin the season not active. I believe, is he on IR or the PUP or something? He's out. I know that. And we do have IR spots. So I immediately put him on IR. I thought about drafting Corum, Jalen Wright, Trey Benson, Xavier Legette, some other rookie receiver or handcuff running back, Jordan Mason. But I couldn't really decide who I wanted between them. So I figured, you know what? Let's pick up Nick Chubb, let the rest of the draft unfold, and then I'll just immediately put Nick Chubb on IR, as I did here. And then just look at the players who are available. Trey Benson is there. Some of those players that I liked got taken, but it didn't really matter because I like a lot of these guys similarly as handcuffs. Trey Benson, I could handcuff. I do have James Conner as well, but I just like Trey Benson, even if you don't have Conner. Maybe even more, because that increases your upside if you have another running back's handcuff that is not on your team. Marshawn Lloyd is another one who, when he's healthy, he'll probably be the backup. Dontavian Wicks is a nice little upside receiver where, you know, come week one, if he's not involved, I cut him, I pick someone else up, but he's a guy who has upside. Kind of like Jamison Williams. He was another guy I considered drafting, but I ended up taking Chubb. If week one comes and Jamison Williams isn't involved, then I cut him. But if he comes out as the Lions wide receiver 2 and makes big plays and is getting targeted, then he's a guy that I would keep, and I'm glad I took him. You know, I like drafting those guys late where you know that you can cut them, or they have high upside. Not just that you know that you can cut them, but you can cut them if you need the roster spot, right? Which you probably will, because a lot of players pop off in week one because we don't know how the season's going to go. Jordan Mason is still there. Bucky Irving is still there. Kendre Miller. I have on what's his name? Alvin Kamara. So I could pick him up, put him on IR, and then pick up another, you know, upside handcuff type of guy. So this is the team. At quarterback, we got Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, and Jordan Love. At running back, we have Raheem Mostert, Alvin Kamara, Drake London. I just said wide receiver. Sorry, let me start over. At quarterback, we have Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, and Jared. Okay. I guess I can't read my team. Holy cow. At quarterback, we have Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, and Jordan Love. At running back, we have Raheem Mostert, Alvin Kamara, James Cook, James Conner, David Montgomery, Tajay Spears. At wide receiver, Drake London, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Tank Dell, and Calvin Ridley. And then at tight end, I have Trey McBride, a top tier tight end. And I do have Nick Chubb on injured reserve as well. Because when he does become active, he's going to have some buzz. He's going to be picked up, and I could trade him, or who knows, maybe I'll even keep him if I have injuries and just see if he can be a flex play or something. So I really like this draft. If anything, I almost have too much depth where having to decide who to start between like James Conner, Tank Dell, Calvin Ridley, David Montgomery, and all these guys I have in my starting lineup. Like right now, Conner, Tank Dell, Calvin Ridley, and David Montgomery are on my bench. So that is a good thing, but it's also like maybe I could have invested a little more in a true difference maker, like a top tier wide receiver or running back. But all in all, injuries are going to happen. Raheem Mostert often gets injured. James Conner often gets injured. Deebo misses games a lot. Kamara's getting older. So, you know, I think this is a good team. So let me know what you think about the team. Good luck this year with your guys' drafts. I'm sure they're probably complete at this point by the time you're listening, but good luck in week 1. It's almost here. Chiefs, Ravens, Thursday night football. It's football time. Let's get it, dude. I'm so excited. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, or follow wherever you're watching. See you guys on the next one. Peace.